productive, be creative, and to have an impact on the business I was involved with. So I decided that I needed to do my own thing, and that's when I came to Monroe County Community College. It was a transitional role for me. As I started my business, I didn't have the heart to tell my parents. My parents told me when I was growing up that I had to get an education. My mother had a 6th grade education. My father graduated from high school. My mother was smarter in business than my father was, but in spite of her lack of education. But anyway, they said they were going to get me educated so I didn't have to work as hard as them. And it didn't work. I worked as hard as they had my whole life. And anyway, when I was teaching school here, I was the first year I was working at Chrysler, and after that, then I started my own business in Michigan that now employs over 4,000 people. And I have never had a simple work schedule that would allow me to do the things that most people do. For 35 years, I've NASCAR raced, and I was 46 years old when I started that. And I've been racing on weekends since I was 22. So anyway, I've served my time and did a lot of things, but I never enjoyed anything more than I enjoyed teaching at Monroe County Community College. The students that I had at that time I think the classroom size was from 15 to 20. I taught internal combustion engine theory. I taught a geometry, trigonometry class. I taught a physics class, and maybe more than one semester. And I had the fuel systems and electrical systems, automatic transmissions, and internal combustion engine theory. The side of the shop that I was working on, the other instructor, I think was just getting started with a service program. Maybe not for all the years, maybe not for all 3 years I was here. I was just getting started, but the intention was, the vision was, of the leadership of the college was that they'd prepare students to be able to work beside engineers in the car companies as technicians, drivers, and that sort of thing. And I placed virtually all the students that graduated from me. I placed them in the automobile industry, and several of them worked for me in my business as it grew. We've got, as I said, over 4,000 people that work for us now, and we're involved in things you wouldn't imagine. We make rides for Disney. We made the Millennium Falcon. We made the Ratatouille ride. We made the Harry Potter ride for Universal. We made a little 1 liter engine for charging batteries for the space station taxi to take people to and from the space station. We made a 1 liter engine that had a. When I found out about it, that we'd been working on it for a couple of years, and most of my engines eventually fail for some reason, not workmanship, and certainly not from anything anybody did wrong, but things wear out. And I figured out that we were making this engine for aerospace. I was real nervous about it. I said, the first question I asked, how long have we been working on this? About 2 years. Oh. How much money have they spent with us? Several $1 million. Oh. So I couldn't get out of it. But the way the thing worked, to not dive in it technically, but the way it worked is there's no sump for the oil. So you have to use misters to oil everything. and there's not normal atmosphere up there, so they put a wash of hydrogen through the thing, and they put just enough oxygen with it to make the power that they need to charge the battery. And that sounded to me like a formula for disaster. But they haven't had any trouble with it. As far as I know, they've been using them and they've been working okay. But we do a lot of military work. I know I was telling the group that I met with earlier that in 91, when Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait, I had CBS, NBC, CNN, several nasty government agencies beating on my door. They came like locusts, all together, and wanted to know what I was doing with Saddam Hussein's limousine. I said, well, you guys forgotten, but 10 years ago he was fighting the Iranians, and you wanted him to have something fast and bulletproof, and I did that for him. And I said, now he's worn it out and sent it back to me. I said, take it. I said, I've got no interest in finishing the thing for him. So they loaded in their hauler and took it away. We had a number of very interesting clients. The previous Pope came to the country and did a tour, must have been 20 years ago. I built a car for him. It was a Cadillac, and they didn't give me much time. It had to be stretched. He had, I think he had Parkinson's at the time, and he had trouble standing up, and he always had to have a handhold on something. So I had all these handholds going up and down so that he could get in and out of his chair. And I get the word that the car is being delivered to the Archdiocese of Detroit, and they're going to manage the car for him. And Cadillac rather, was arranging the transportation, but the schedule was being organized through the Catholic Church. And they got the lights down in the room, they got the incense, they got the thing on the string that they're waiting on back and forth. I'm a Protestant, I'm not a Catholic, so there's no disrespect meant there. I'm not familiar with the process. But I said under my breath, as I'm looking at this car, I said, oh my God, I said, we forgot to put a top on it. We didn't have enough time to put a top on it. The specs didn't call for a top. And the priest touches me on the shoulder and says, not to worry, my son, God won't rain on the Pope's car. And he didn't. Went through the whole tour and never got to rain on the car. But anyway, we've had a lot of customers and doing a lot of very interesting things. I built the, anybody ever own ride in a Taurus?
Yeah.
Everybody has. Front-wheel drive V6, 90-degree V6 is a staple of personal transportation. Ford asked me to build a 90-degree V6. The 3.8-liter V6 that was on the market, it was General Motors Buick had a good example of it. And those were always north-south. They were bolted along the center line of the car, not crosswise in the front, because it shook so bad. And they asked me to build a car that would demonstrate that you couldn't hold the vibrations down enough to make it palatable. And I failed at that. I built them a nice car, and they said that it was feasible. And we had a 90-degree Buick V6 in the front, with the engine mounts are organized with the science that has to do with the noise, vibration, and the harshness lab that we've done a lot of things with, and our lab. And we built them a nice car, and so they went on and designed a Ford car that would be in the right weight and the right size, and around a 3.8-liter Ford V6. What else can I tell you about? When I was 22 years old, by the time I was 22 years old and went to work for Ford, I'd already built 4 big displacement hot rod engines out of junkyard parts. And the fourth car I built, I actually built in Detroit. Built a Falcon with 289 high performance engine in it, with a 292 Ford steel truck crankshaft that I ground the journals down to make it fit the 289 block. Made it a 350 cubic inch. My brother and I raced that car for 2.5 years. Never lost a race with it. I have to say that I drove it with reckless abandon sometimes on the public highways, but never had a wreck with it. Never caused anybody else to wreck. One day I'm sitting on Allen Road, getting ready to get on Southfield, where it's still residential and business before it becomes limited access. And I'm sitting there in my Falcon waiting for just before you can make a right turn on red. And I'm waiting for the light to change, and an Oldsmobile, 442 Oldsmobile, red one, pulled up beside him, and the guy's revving the engine up back and forth. He's making all kinds of noise over there. And the light changed, and of course we took off up north on Southfield, headed toward the expressway. And there was a policeman watching us from a parking lot. He turned his light on. He comes up to, he flags me down and puts me in position. He gets the other car, the Oldsmobile, behind me, and he parks in front. So he blocks us. Actually, yeah, I guess he parked in back. He parked behind us. But he went to the other car first, and just a heartbeat, the Oldsmobile was burning rubber as he went by me. I said, "This is going to be okay." He came up to me. I'm 22 years old. He's probably 50 or 60. He's got a face as red as a tomato. He's got a jugular vein like your index finger. He is mad. He said, "Okay, his wife's having a baby. What's your excuse?" So I gave him my stuff, and he went back, and just, again, it's a short instant. Here he comes. This time he's got his hand on his gun, and he's running. The reason he's got his hand on his gun is because he's running. He threw a half-written ticket and my license and registration down in my lap. I looked at him. He said, "Okay, there's been an injury accident at Alger Drive in Southfield." He said, "I'll see you another day." So I got out of that one. I never had a reckless driving or a drag racing ticket in my life. I was really lucky that way. What else can I tell you to be interested in? I went to Brea College, Brea, Kentucky, which is a place where you don't have to pay tuition. But you have to be somewhat of a hopeless case in terms of going to college to be able to get in there. Most of the students come from Appalachia, fair number from overseas, but most of them come from Appalachia. The year that I went there, my family had businesses that didn't do well while I was growing up. And it wasn't clear that I'd be able to go to college. And my superintendent recommended that Brea look at me, and I look at Brea. And so I started. I was one of two students that got a chance to go to Brea from Ohio, because most of the students, I said, come from the South and from Appalachia. And I started off fixing bicycles. And I wound up fixing cars. I was married when I was a junior. I had 2 years as a town student, and while I was in my senior year, I traded cars 5 or 6 times. I'd have a car, I'd fix it so everything worked properly on it, and put a sign on it. And the staff member from the college would have a car that had a problem, and they said, "We'd like to trade you this car with a bad transmission or a bad exhaust system or a bad engine. How much do you want in difference from it?" I graduated in college from Brea, was a place where the dormitory students couldn't have cars, with enough money to buy myself a brand new Mustang when I went to work for Ford in '64. So that was, I actually bought the car before I knew I was going to go to work for Ford. I had I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to fly Air Force F-4s. And they looked at my background in English and math that I had in high school and college, and they said that I need to be the ordnance guy in the back seat. So the rear was the smart one. The guy up front was with his hair on fire was the job I wanted. So I went to work for Ford instead. But it was the time I spent at Monroe was some of the happiest times of my life. Got the business started with my equipment that I had for my drag racing. We won 2 championships, 71 and 72. We won championships both years. We won championships 72, 3, and 4. And I was able to really chart a course that kept me going. I was 79 years old and I still work every day. And so it's charted a course for me that's given me great satisfaction. Never enjoyed anything more than teaching at Monroe County. Anybody got questions for me?
How did you and Wayne Gap meet each other?
Wayne Gap and I were, Wayne was in charge of the NASCAR engine for the 429 boss.